I'm starting to see why they dropped the color off the title of this show because just calling it Lanterns covers one, two, three different groups in this show. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. The second episode of Lanterns is here. It's called Trustful. And it's interesting because this is the episode that doesn't really progress the story too much. It is setting up a lot of pieces. It's putting a lot of things in play, definitely building out the world that exists. But the story that they've kind of placed in front of us, we don't really get too much movement here. But it doesn't mess up the importance or the excitement for this episode. It's still a really well done episode. It's interesting because if you're a Green Lantern fan, there's some things that stick out more to you than it would be the casual fan that is watching this off of the whim of being an HBO series. But the story picks up the end of the last. We don't get any movement really with the Hal Jordan reveal that he is dead piece in the 2026. This entire episode takes place in the middle 2016 era, the training day era, if you will. And so we pick up with Hal waking up John in his bed to sort of give him a flight training scenario. Like, all right, we're going to learn how to fly. Flying, this is what we're going to do. But it's really just a test to see if he can do it. And if he can't, he's going to send him on a flight because he needs him to go back to Coast City to get the lantern because his ring has not been charged up enough. He's only at like 5%, which begs to question why Hal got so far away from his lantern without charging it, knowing that he was going to be doing what it is that he's doing. That's a whole side question why he's not taking care of his business, but I'm sure that'll come up at some point in time. But in this flight training piece, he gives John the ring for a brief moment to try and fly. Doesn't work, so he has to send him on a plane. But while John does have the ring, he makes a construct of a bird. Now, I'm imagining that this bird at some point in time is going to be an important piece to John's story, even though he's trying to tries to let on that it has nothing. It's not a matter of importance to him. It is, but he makes the construct of the bird. And then he gives the ring back to Hal, and the bird construct remains, which Hal kind of gives a look of like, okay, he clocks it. You as an audience clock him clocking that for a good reason. And everybody sort of makes mention of it as it goes along, because typically in Green Lantern lore, most lanterns, once the ring is removed, the construct sort of dissipates. You have to have a lot of strong will and a lot of willpower and brain power to sort of concentration to sort of keep that construct going for as long as you are. So it is a bit of an awe or pat in the back to be like, okay, I see you, John. I see you. So John goes off to Coast City to go look for the lantern at Hal's place while Hal continues his investigation in Rushville. While he's investigating the town, it sort of looks like a ghost town. Everyone seems to be gone. Nobody seems to be working, doing any type of thing. And so he uses his last bit of power in his ring before it burns out to look to see where everybody is at. And they're basically having a town hall in the center of Rushville to discuss the things that have occurred last night with the 4 dead bodies, and then how the 5th one being killed in the interrogation room. And Hal just walks into the town meeting and be like, hey, are y'all talking about me? Because something feels weird. Y'all all here, and I wasn't aware of this, but he's not a part of the town. But in this meeting, Sheriff Carey is sort of having an open forum to tell everybody, like, hey, this is what's happening. Do we want to cancel football game? Or do we want to go back to status quo like we were doing before? And in this meeting, her husband comes, which is also Hal's lawyer. That's like, hey, I got you out on bail. Assault charges are being dropped. You're good to go. You should leave now. And you're like, wait, what? And everybody's sort of pushing him to be out of the town. Like, you shouldn't be here anymore. It's a consistent, like, Hal, you should leave. Please leave. Go away. We don't want you here. Please leave. While he's at this town hall, he gets a call from John, because John makes it to the house. He's like, look, I'm here. Your house is massive. What's happening here? And we learn that Hal got this off of saving someone else. Like, it's not his house because the lanterns don't make enough to justify having a home like that. But Hal lives there, but very at a very minimal means. It's not lived in. There's not a lot of furniture. There's just a bed and then a bunch of empty rooms. Neither here nor there. Hal walks John through his room, through his place to find out where the ring is, and he finds it. He also finds a suit that he's like, okay, this is a nice suit. Puts it up to sort of look at himself as to what he would look like in this suit. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, that suit looked good on him. He asks Hal that he wants him to bring the suit back, and Hal kind of flippantly is like, "Nah, I don't want it." He says a funny joke, which I won't ruin, but he's like, "Nah, I don't want it." And then he asks him to go reach into the vault and get the lantern. Now, an interesting piece. This won't mean much to most people, but John puts his hand into the vault, and for him, it looks like he's just kind of reaching into a lockbox, like a safe box. But on the other side, we see that it is a vast, what we will call a pocket dimension. So it's sort of opening up the world as how big this world can be and become. It's sort of the pocket dimension that if anybody saw Superman, there was a pocket, like another dimension that sort of existed. That's what's happening here. And so reaches in, he gets the lantern, pulls it out. He goes to feed Earl, which is this extraterrestrial vine thing that Hal has, and he's about to put the key back under the rock that Hal told him to get into his home. He is abducted and put into a van by some unknown assailants. They arrest him, take him to custody, tase him, pretty much knocking him out. And he comes back to inside of the van, and a bit of a scuffle ensues, and a pretty cool action sequence. The budget for this is very different than the budget that exists in the pilot episode, which typically happens from pilot to the second episode. It's a lot of proof of concept in pilot episodes, and the second one is like, all right, cool, you got it. We're going to make the show. Here's your budget. And they use some of it. And it's a pretty cool action sequence. It's in a live, active street. So highway. So cars are coming out left and right. Tussle ensues. John and one of the assailants that try to stop him or take him custody start doing a chase scene in the middle of a highway. And it's pretty intense. And John has to flip over and do some stuff. Meanwhile, this whole time, his construct is still following behind him. Something that just shows you the willpower and concentration that John has is kind of otherworldly. Like they're sort of showing you the power set that he has and how strong his is versus Hal, who had to sort of jump on his construct in the last episode to sort of keep it intact. Even though it was an explosion, slightly different, but just to show you the concentration power that exists between the two of them. John doesn't get very far. He gets recaptured, and then he wakes up in front of a man named Anton, who's interrogating him. He gets interrogated by Anton, who I'll talk about Anton and who he is in just a second. But Anton's interrogating him, and he asks him specifically, does John know what manhunters are? John hasn't really heard of it, hasn't something that's been brought up. Hal has not discussed this with him, so it has not come up. Anton does clock that John, like that Hal's nowhere around, so how's this construct happening? And John's like, no, I did this. And they're kind of amazed, like, whoa, that's amazing, because there's no ring on you, there's no ring present. When did you make this construct? Like, it's another clocking of like, that's an impressive feat you just did there. But John learns that the manhunters are a type of society that embed themselves into a population unbeknownst. They take whatever form they need to. They can take a human form, they can take whatever form they need to. And then they sort of bring in their technologies, and then their technologies help them to sort of take over and eventually annihilate a world, annihilate a species, annihilate a population. They then take some sort of a weapon, a gun, to help John see what it is that he's talking about the mass destruction that these manhunters have done to his people. So he puts a gun to his head, and like, so this orangish, reddish light exists inside of the gun, and it gives him the memory immediately of what it is, that the genocide that he is explaining to John. And at that point, he then uncuffs John because he feels like, hey, what I've just shown you, you're no longer going to look at me as the threat. You're going to know that the threat is elsewhere. And so I think we can be on the same page. So once he gives them that memory to instill like what it is that they went through, he unchains John. He's like, look, I need your help. They know that the manhunter is in Rushville. Like, they know that. They were on to him. They had 4 people. Those 4 people that got killed were definitely on to the fact that there was a manhunter there. But then they died for their troubles. But they can no longer go to Rushville because they'll be detected. We'll get to that part in a second, but they'll be detected. They'll be known. They'll be seen. And so they need someone else to go there to sort of find out who this manhunter is. So they're asking John to be the one to do it. And even though John doesn't have a ring, they're asking him because they don't trust Hal. They're like, we don't trust Hal. Part of it is probably because Hal's sort of previous history with another former Lantern. We'll get there as well. But they want John to be the one to find him. They don't want John to tell Hal at all. But they're giving John a clock. They're like, look, once they take human form, they can die by the same way that a human can. So whatever form they take, they can die in the same manner that they take. And so they are giving a 48-hour clock for John to say, hey, you find out who that manhunter is. And when you find out, give us a call and we'll come take care of it. But if we don't hear from you in 48 hours, we're going to blow that whole city to holy hell. John's like, okay, got it. While that's happening, meanwhile, back in Rushville, Hal is stealing bodies. He goes to the morgue and he steals the alien corpses of the people that were killed, the aliens. And he takes them out of the morgue and then he runs them through the stadium to sort of see like how something about them arriving at this stadium clocked to someone that they shouldn't be there, that they were aliens. And why were they chosen to be killed out of all the other people that were there? And so Hal does a little bit of investigation, takes the bodies, runs them through the stadium, and he realizes that the metal detectors have been upgraded in technology to be alien detectors. And so they immediately can see where an alien is. And like, well, that makes Hal like, well, hold on. Hold up. Where did this technology come from? Who created this? And because I need to find out why this is here and who put this here immediately. And now I need to know why William Macon was so adamant about me. Hey, that person's an alien. You need to track him. Like, how do you know this person so matter of factly? Like, what? Something's not adding up here. So Hal's now on a hunt. He's like, I can't let this go. After being stopped by the sheriff, she escorts Hal to William's ranch, if you will, to sort of have another meeting. Now, mind you, he was there before when William needed him to be like, hey, go handle this. But William's like, you don't need to be here anymore. Hal, like your services are done. The five aliens have been removed from service, so you no longer need to be here. It's very antagonistic. Like, please leave here because you no longer have a right to be here. We don't need you. This is no longer your jurisdiction. All the alien type ish is gone. So what are you here for? What's your purpose here? And Hal is very questioning, like, how did that technology get here? Like, who put that here? And William lets on like that. I have an investor that put that into place. Now, who that investor is, who knows? There are a lot in this DC world. There are a lot of rich people that have a lot of money that can fund this type of stuff. So we'll probably find out somebody, Lex, Bruce, who the hell knows? But somebody is funding this for William. But Hal is like, well, if you have that tech, what other tech do you have? Which kind of goes back to why in the conversation, the interrogation with John, Anton they can't go there anymore. They can't figure out because now they'll be detected automatically. Hal, though, is refusing to leave. He's like, no, we're going to have a conversation about this. So William has somebody shoot Hal through the shoulder and for his troubles, for not getting off of his lawn. Before I get to the next part where Hal wakes up in the hospital, I do need to sort of go back to the Anton piece of it. Anton, for Lantern fans, is the leader of another version of the Lanterns, which we call the Red Lanterns. He eventually becomes the leader of the Red Lanterns called Atrocitus. Now, they are a group of people who are formed. You'll learn that this is why they don't use the color set. You'll learn that each of these lanterns have sort of a skill set or something that they're important on. Green Lanterns are willpower. Willpower is their biggest thing. They're known for that. Red Lanterns are angry and hateful, and they just want to get vengeance on everything. Hence the one alien in the interrogation window getting the same vengeance. That's all they're about. Revenge, vengeance, anger. Even in this conversation, Anton's like, we just want to get vengeance back and we will burn it all down. they're hoping to use, because John is such a good man, to use him as the way sort of in, but they don't care how they get there. They just want to burn it all down, which is why I brought up the color palette that was on the gun that was using the John. That red is sort of important because it becomes sort of their calling card. But that is why the show, now I'm seeing why the show is being called Lanterns, because there's multiple versions of them being sort of put into play. It's not because they're ashamed of the word green. So when Hal wakes up in the hospital, he's chained to the bed, and Carrie is there by his Sheriff Carrie is there by his bedside, and she's like, "Yeah, you got shot because, well, you were trespassing on someone's private property." Um, and at that point, we get a little bit of a backstory where she questions him about Sinestro, because in his sleep, that's all he kept saying was Sinestro, Sinestro. And she knows that Sinestro was a former Lantern that made a coup on the Lanterns and killed a former Green Lantern and sort of went off to do his own thing, which another Lantern color set, yellow. And I'll bring up what the yellow one means at the very end because it sort of ties in. She's like, also like, look, I'm not unchaining you from this bed until you make a promise to me that you will no longer get involved with this investigation. Let me do this. You be at your hospital, and if I need you, I 100% will tag you in. But right now, let me do this. Let me be the one to do all of this stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. I do have a question though. You seem to have already known about the alien detectors, which if you knew about the alien detectors already, why did you seem so adamant when I first arrived on site to be like, hey, you don't belong here? Because you knew that it did. And she's honestly says, look, I just didn't want to freak out the townspeople. Like, I think if people start seeing you and people start thinking that there are aliens here, paranoia is going to set in. And I just don't want that from my husband or the town folks that are here. So that is why I went that direction. And I was like, okay, that's fair. I can buy that. No issues there. And then she hits back. I was like, well, if the everything seems to be on the up and up and we seem to be done here, why are you still here? And he says something like, I just can't shake the feeling that we're not done here. There's something off about what's happening here. Um, and then they leave, and as Hal's leaving the hospital, it's vacant. Like, no one seems to be actively working here, and all of the machines seem to be under tarps, like they've just been taken out of a crane. Like, he's just clocking everything, and nothing about this city feels correct. And he's trying to get to the bottom of it. So as John is making his way back to Rushville, he stops at a diner to sort of clear his head, to kind of figure out who it is that he can trust, who it is that he can actually give the information that he just got from Anton back to. And he runs into William's wife, Zoe, um, at the diner. And she's sort of just having her moment to herself. And they converse a bit. And he firstly comes out, and this is an important piece, I think, just to tell you who he is as a person. He's like, look, if I knew you were married, I would never have slept with you. And she's like, well, I'm glad you didn't know. And she wanted that. And he's kind of like, well, was this the type of stuff that you're into? And she's like, no, I mean, sort of, but like, I'm happy. I love my husband, and he provides. Everything is fine. I get to live in this. He could have chosen any blonde woman that he possibly could have had to be his wife, but he chose me. And so he's my white man that I have. He has certain things that I can't be a part of, and that he lives in. But he has a white man complex that he has, and from time to time, I just have to let that go and let that be what it is. And from time to time, I need a break from that, and you were that break from that. Um, but I don't want a relationship with you. And like, yes, other men could want me, but I like what I got with this guy, so I'm fine. And then she's kind of like, well, what about your white dude? Are you and your white man good? And referring to Hal, he's like, look, I don't know if I trust him. Like, that's the biggest piece of it. And she's like, well, if you have to question whether or not you can trust him, I think that's the answer right there. You don't trust him. So then John continues home, and he gets back to Hal, who obviously has a shoulder thing. He kind of questions, like, what the hell happened to you? Been shot. And he delivers the lantern back to Hal, and eventually does trust Hal with the information about the Manhunter. He asks about the Manhunter, and Hal immediately stands up, like, well, where did you hear that name? Like, where did you hear that from? And he sort of gives him the whole rundown about the 48 hours, how much time they have, what they're doing, the technology. And Hal's like, okay, got it. What do we what do we want to do? And John's kind of like, well, what? I wasn't even supposed to give you that information. So how do you want to play this? It's at this point that a fun thing sort of happens because John calls out Hal not saying anything about the bird still being constructed. Like John has no idea if the bird was supposed to be there or not. He just thinks that's normal. Hal knows that it's not. He's like, look, these guys, Anton told me that this is a special thing and that you should be giving me a big hurrah about this. And Hal kind of gives him a very sarcastic hurrah because it is an amazing feat, but he also doesn't want to give this kid any credence. Um, and so it's kind of like, yeah, hurrah. He sort of pats him in the back, but he knows that that's a big, big freaking thing. So then John, he's ready to go to bed before he sees his car with alien goo all over it. It's at that point that Hal sort of asks, like, hey, the bird. Yes, hooray, it's still there. But you've had it this whole time. Why did you construct that at that moment? And John doesn't let on if it means anything. It's like, no, it doesn't mean anything, which I think in a future episode, we're going to find out that it does mean something very important to him. But he sort of destroys the construct and then goes to bed. At that point, Hal suits up in a full-on Green Lantern suit, takes off for flight, and heads up to Lantern fans. They don't name it. We know it. It's Oa. It's the planet for all the Green Lanterns. It's the prison he goes to go visit a specific person. He goes to go see Sinestro, who is the leader, comments, of the Yellow Lantern. So that's 3 sets of lanterns that we have here. Hence the title not being called Green Lanterns, because we're dealing with all of them. All of them are coming in here. Yellow Lanterns play in fear. They are deal with fear and mind games to sort of get you to believe that you are less than you are. But Hal goes to Sinestro because if anybody's going to know anything about Manhunters, it would be Sinestro. So Hal goes up there to be like, hey, what do you know about Manhunters? And he says, if one were to be alive right now, it would be the second greatest threat that you're facing right now. And then he asks, but please do tell me about John Stewart, which is implying that he is the first. And that is how the episode ends. It's very much Sinestro trying to play mind games with Hal, like, you know that boy. You know damn well that boy is not your trainee. Like, you know he's going to be better than you. You've seen the construct. You've seen the construct thing. You've seen how he was able to keep that after being shocked, knocked unconscious. That bird was still there. That's how strong that man is. You see it. You know it. He's better than you. He's better than me. He's better than all of us. How does that make you feel? Like, that is the type of game that Sinestro is playing with Hal already in just a little bit of time. But yeah, solid episode. We're putting red lanterns and green lanterns all on the board. It's also important that a lot of the times those red lanterns will use vengeance and get other people to believe their vengeance, even though it's not true. So what they put into John's mind was probably implant that may not have been the 100% correct version of what happened to them. They see things differently than may have actually happened. And so who knows was right or wrong, but they Red Lantern sort of fall on the villains and anti-hero realm. And I think, but they always do it with anger and hate. And so who knows with how the Green Lantern sort of act, how that's all going to sort of come out in the wash. But yeah, a solid episode. We get a mention of Gotham because Carrie used to come. She came from Gotham. She was born in Gotham. There's also even a phone call where she says something to the effect of, tell Barb I said hi, which I would imagine she's talking to Gordon, saying, hey, tell Barb, his daughter. So that we're sort of world building out. And yeah, it's a good time. Like, this is one of those things where I actually know the world, and I'm giddy about talking about it. And they're doing, showing respect and doing a really good job with the world they're building. I do think, though, within the next episode, we need to sort of progress the story. Either the story that's happening with Hal in the future, the 2026 run, or give me a little bit more police work with the two of them sort of being their buddy cop stuff in 2016. Who's the Manhunter? That's sort of the big mystery of this series, this season. I think William being the Manhunter is a little too obvious, and I don't think it's him. I do think that he may be a guard or a lieutenant of the Manhunter, and there could be two. But I think if there's one, I don't think it's William. I think that's too blatantly obvious. And so, who? Not entirely sure. Don't buy this, Zoe. I feel like the one that makes the most sense because they kind of is falling under the radar, and he actively wants him gone as much as well would be Carrie's husband, also Hal's lawyer. Like right now, that's my person. If I'm putting the flag on, I'm like, yeah, I think it's you. I think it's you. But what did you guys think about the second episode of Lanterns called Trust Fall? Leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on X at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name. That's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.